We're evolutionarily programmed to want to fit in. We don't really think about the ramifications of staring at that person but not actually speaking to them, and how that will actually truly compromise their learning experience.
Today, we're diving into what it really means to own your learning journey as a rider and how that can transform your connection with your horse. I'm joined by my good friend, Culbertson, mom of two, successful podcaster, and a passionate advocate for reshaping how we learn and grow in the horse world. Together, we'll tackle the challenges of toxic learning environments, the courage it takes to embrace vulnerability, and how we can create a more supportive, inclusive community for riders and their horses. This conversation is personal for me and the work we do at Noëlle Floyd. It's the heart of our mission to make learning accessible and inclusive, because every rider deserves the tools and confidence to grow on their own terms. If you've ever felt like the horse world wasn't built for you, or you're searching for a space that feels authentic and empowering, this episode is for you. Let's do this!
Noëlle, welcome to the Horse Person Podcast.
Caroline, welcome to the Dear Horse World Podcast.
I'm so excited to do this with you.
Okay, so we should tell everyone what we're doing.
Yes, so we are doing a podcast collaboration. Clearly, obviously, known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And we've worked together for a long time. And so this is, I think, very special because we can talk a little bit about how this all came to be, a little bit about what you're up to now, what I'm up to now.
Yep.
And like what we've learned over our journey with horses, but also over the past 6 years of our friendship.
Career, working together, friendship. Yep, all the things. We've been through so much together.
Yeah.
We've been through the birth of both your kids, the death of my mom, the evolution of the company, COVID.
Truly.
Like, we've been through a lot together.
Truly wild ride.
Yeah.
It's been a very transformative phase in both of our lives and our careers.
Yeah.
And I was thinking back to how kind of this all started. And I remember the first time that you emailed me. I was about coming and working for the company.
Yeah.
I was dog sitting. I was staying at somebody's house. I was dog sitting their dog, and I got an email from you. And the reason that I was dog sitting was to make extra cash so that I could afford to take lessons.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so the first time that I ever heard from you, I think it was like a Thursday night or something like that.
Yeah.
And I got an email from you, and I was by myself in a strange person's house with their dog, away from all of my animals, to help fund my journey with horses. And I got an email from you, and I was like, what is this? This is interesting and curious.
Yeah.
And you kind of laid out your vision for the company in that email.
Yep.
Which it's interesting because it's very similar and very different than kind of how your vision looks for your company now.
Yep.
And so we got together
in New York.
Do you remember that?
I remember explicitly. I just remember feeling like I knew exactly that I knew I had been told about you by a couple of people. And when I was looking for basically for lack of a better title, like the editor-in-chief of, and I've told you this for the whole time we've known each other, you are the editor-in-chief of my dreams. And when I was looking for someone who I felt could expand and carry on the narrative vision, and who had who had the same, if not bigger passion for storytelling, and who would maintain the integrity of the platform, there was only one name that came up continuously by both riders and people in the business. And so when I emailed you, I think I probably packed a bit of a punch, because I was like, she has to say yes.
It was an extremely compelling email. There was no way that I could say no to that email.
Good.
For sure.
Yeah, and thank God you didn't, because we wouldn't be here doing this.
Yeah.
But I remember really vividly, I remember walking, and I remember the restaurant had curtains on the windows. It was super flashy and cool, and I felt I was like, man, I hope I make a good impression, because you just felt like and you felt and were a pivotal part of the transition of the business from blog to business. And it really was that transition. Yeah. It had been a magazine, it was a magazine, it was a well-established magazine, it was a blog, so it was a very established editorial voice. But I wanted to make it I wanted to continue to expand the brand, and I wanted to make it a business because I had such big ideas, and I knew that it had to transition really from content to commerce in order to do that. Mm-hmm. And you were a pivotal part of making that transition because I knew you'd be able to maintain the integrity of the brand through that transition, which is a very difficult one to make.
I actually didn't know any of that backstory, so this is making me blush a lot. But do you know there's two things that I really remember from that meeting. The first is, I don't know why, because I had never actually met you in person, but I immediately hugged you like a total psychopath. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then I said afterwards, I was like, that was pretty weird that I just hugged you.
No, and I was like,
a job interview.
Yeah.
And who hugs the person that they're about to have a job interview with? That is so bizarre.
But I think that goes to show like the familiarity that we had from right out the get-go.
I just felt very comfortable with you, from the beginning.
Yeah, interested to hear whether you feel this way too. But I feel like when like meets like in the horse world, you almost feel, and I've definitely been caught up a couple times by this, meeting people in the horse world, because I'm like, we're like this is like meets like we are similar, and we have that, we like speak the same language, and so you feel a sense of intimacy with that person almost like right away. And that's how I felt with you. Is like I felt like even just talking with people, I felt we had the same values. And then because we're both like, and I think now that I know you, like you wear your heart on your sleeve, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like we're just like big feeling human beings that pour all of our heart and soul into our work. And so I think the hug was like just a perfect beginning.
I have a distinct memory of being in that conversation with you, and I wanted to devour that conversation. It's like we could not put our brains together fast enough. In the horse world, I think so often we feel very individualistic. And I was certainly feeling that at that time in my life. I was spending a lot of time kind of creating content by myself, creating my content in isolation. And I really longed to be a part of a team that had kind of a bigger vision and felt like it was going to kind of fight against the things that I was struggling with at the time, which was feeling lonely, honestly, in the horse world, even though this is something that we do in community with one another. I think we have a lot of work to do in the horse world around being advocates for everyone's experience here.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because, and maybe that is like the affinity that we had for each other, is that like so much of why I created Noëlle Floyd was from a sense of like a void, like a sense of disconnect, a sense of like, I was like, surely we can like create more connection, because I'm not feeling that connection. So maybe if I weave it together through content, through story, through accessibility, that maybe we can address some of that. And I think that's maybe some of the like some of the affinity that you and I felt from the beginning, because I think you and I have I've shared this with you through my own journey, my own personal journey with my horses, and I know you have too, is like we have, and that's why I think maybe we have felt such a sense of like intimacy and trust so early on, was like and I think when you work in media, you do feel very singular. And I mean, you know this, maybe some of our listeners don't, but like when I started the blog, I worked every single day on that blog on my own for 3.5 years. I wrote 3,192 blog posts on my own. I photographed them, I edited them, I did everything before I had any type of ability to hire help. So you're going to horse shows alone, you're interviewing alone, you're photographing alone, you're applying for media accreditation alone. And that was the reason why I could do that, was because I felt as alone in my journey as a rider. Before that, when I was riding professionally, I was alone. I applied for that job alone. I worked at the barn at a professional barn in Belgium alone. I flew to Belgium alone. Like, it's so interesting because we exist in community as horse people. We do. We exist in community. And yet I can think of some of the loneliest times in my life, like being a working student in California. That is the loneliest I have ever felt. I was at a barn. I was amongst people every single day. I have never felt more alone than when I was doing that.
I think there's this conception that people who have a large Rolodex of contacts feel in community.
Yeah.
And media is the perfect example of how that's not necessarily true. I mean, I think that was an experience that we were both having, and that partially solidifies that bond. I find that I feel really close with people when I am learning something new with them, or I'm having some sort of like imperfect experience with them. And, you know, for 6 years, that was the journey that you and I were on together, was you had this vision and we stumbled through it. I mean,
we really did. We were like breaking through walls for the first time, pioneering work. Yeah. And
there was a North Star. We
Mm-hmm.
knew where we were headed.
Yep.
But we were blind to the directions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that does bond you. And I think I wish I had embraced more of that, like, perfectly imperfect. Like, we've seen that shirt here. And by the way, guys, we're at Equine Affaire. I feel like we haven't mentioned that.
No. Yeah. No,
Okay,
we're at
so
Equine Affaire.
We're here and we're on a sofa at our NF Plus booth at Equine Affaire. And so this is a live podcast, and I just realized, I was like, yeah. And we've seen this t-shirt and we've been meeting some incredible people. And I'm really glad that 37-year-old me is meeting all these amazing people here in Springfield, Massachusetts, over even 25, or even like how old was I? So I'm 37, so 31-year-old me when we met, when I think 30, 31, something like that. Because I actually understand what that means so much more at like right now than I did back then. I don't think, like, I still had this, I think, naive commitment to this idea that things can be perfect. That's not fair to anyone. And so I think that perfection is like a real like crutch that I like, or like it was like a ball and chain actually, that I think I carried around with me, both in my own riding and my own pursuit as an entrepreneur. And I think the universe, the world, life was like, oh, honey, I hope for you that you learn that perfectly imperfect is truly the only perfection you'll ever achieve. And that, like, you know, that's where the magic happens. In business and in riding and with horses and in horsemanship. Like, it's that imperfection, it's the making the mistakes, it's the journey. It's actually even exploring something that you think you had a vision for, because that's the journey of the company. Is every time I thought, I was like, oh, for sure, this is what we're doing. The universe and the world and life will be like, I know, honey, that you have a particular vision here, but you also have to be in conversation, you know, with whatever it is, with your team, with your customers, with your horse, with the world. You have to be in conversation. It's a back and forth. You know, I couldn't have this I'm not going to have this podcast just me. The richness of the conversation happens because two people are contributing.
I want to talk about what your life looks like right now, because it looks so very different than it's ever looked before.
Very perfectly imperfect right now.
Where did this idea of hitting the road come from? And why did it feel like the right time to do it?
Well, my partner, Ben, was the person who was the original, the origin of the idea. And when he first broached the idea, I was like, absolutely not. I was very reluctant to the idea. And the idea was, let's drive across Canada and the United States in a horse trailer with our horses and our dogs. Let's pack up our life. Let's sell our house and let's connect. Like, he's like, I think you should connect with the horse world, and I think you should meet people on the ground, and I think you should take a pulse of what's happening in the horse world the way you did when you started your blog. The first time I heard it, I was like, nope. And I could feel this like really strong resistance, to the point where I was like, okay, this is like more than, you know, like almost like in the hero's journey, it's like the resistance that the protagonist feels in the beginning.
Why did you have that resistance? Because you are not inherently a super risk averse person. So like, what was it about that felt like friction?
The vulnerability of it, the fear of it, like my mare being, like my horses being uncomfortable, me being uncomfortable, and honestly seeing things in the horse world that I didn't want to see, experiencing things that I didn't want to experience, learning about the flow, like more, like I think I'm a bit of an idealist sometimes. I like to exist in this like this optimistic state that like things can get better, things will be better, things are better, they are getting better, we are doing better, like all the time. And it's like what fuels me a lot of the time. And I knew that if I embarked on this journey, 10,000 miles, it's going to be more than that now, 10,000 miles across the United States for a year or more, was one, I was going to ask more of my horses than I had asked for them before. So I had to process that. So I had to talk to a lot of masterclass instructors and people that I know and respect in the horse world, to just be like, is what I'm doing fair? I think I was really grateful to have some really good people, Tick, Josh being, Chelsea being amongst those, to be like, okay, if what I want to do, or is this idea fair to them? And can I do this in a way that actually like allows them to be better horses at the end of this trip? Can I do this and manage their stress levels? Is this fair? I also had a mare that didn't particularly like to travel.
Right.
So I was like, how's that going to go? And I'm going to be met with, and I would be dishonest if I said that it wasn't like, what the most intimidating part of it is I was going to be met with all of my limitations. So I was going to be like, okay, I have to be mature enough to recognize that I'm going to be met with all the things that I need to work on in my own horsemanship journey, in my own riding. I'm going to put myself in so many opportunities to learn, which is amazing. And it's vulnerable. It's like learning at that level, at that pace, putting yourself in so many new places. Like all of the states that we've been in, most of them I've never been in. You know, the places that we're staying in, it was going to require a lot of generosity and hospitality from people I've never met. I was going to have to constantly ask, hey, can you host me? Like, it's just a big state of vulnerability, of relying on other people. You know, it's very, it's been, you know how I've lived the last couple of years. Like, I was in front of the camera for a while, and then I got really comfortable behind the camera. I got really comfortable in my office, like pouring my heart and soul, but through the computer. And this move would shift that and turn it on its axes. And I was going to have to, it was inviting me to put myself back into a place of vulnerability, and back into a state of learning, and back into a state of listening. And all of that was going to require maturity and honesty and humility, a lot of humility. And I can tell you that this trip has required a lot of humility and a good gratitude practice, all of which I don't think I was particularly disciplined about before I left. So, and I knew that I was going to be uncomfortable more often than I would be comfortable. That comfort was going to be like a bit of a luxury on a journey like this. And that was true. And that is true for sure.
Yeah.
So, and it took a while, like it took like a good month probably for me to, I think Ben proposed the idea like around March. And I don't think I came around to the idea until like April or maybe even May. And then once we decided, it was like, then we had to really like hustle to make it happen if we were going to leave by end of August.
You have had to ask for a lot of help during this process,
Yep.
Probably in a way that you haven't had to before, because
Yeah.
I think it's really different to ask for help within a team that is all working towards, a common goal.
Yes.
Than to ask for someone who's adjacent to that mission.
Yes.
For participation in what you're doing. What have you learned about asking for help? How to do it tactfully, how to do it with humility, and how to do it effectively?
Well, first of all, I would say that one thing I've learned on this trip is that like the people that I thought were going to be really helpful or really hospitable were not as hospitable or helpful. And the people that I wasn't sure or maybe didn't think that they would be as hospitable and helpful are been really, really. So I'll do a shout out. I'm not going to shout out to anyone negative. Like I'm not going to
not put anyone on blast.
No,
okay.
I'm not going to blast anyone here, but I'm going to talk about the people who have been extraordinary. The rodeo community, extraordinary. Like the, what is it? The sweater off your back.
And the shirt off your back.
Shirt off your back.
Yeah.
There you go. The shirt off your back.
She's a Canadian. Everyone.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Apologies for her.
The rodeo community in Alberta, like, I mean, talk about setting the bar. A level of like generosity and support and like just emotional, physical, everything, like mentorship, all of it, all of the above. I was really blown away because I don't really know the rodeo community that well, and I'm getting to know them better. And I've learned that because the rodeo community is often all helping each other out. They're all on the road. They're on and I've seen rodeo schedule is crazy. It's like every single weekend during
very transient
circuit.
People. Yeah.
And so everyone like gets to an event. They're all in the same state. Like they're in a state of like unpacking and getting the horses comfortable and preparing for competition. And, a lot like, the traveling circus of the show jumping world. But I'd never, I know that world. And again, the show jumping world is different. It's just a different dynamic. And so I was really pleasantly surprised by that. In terms of asking for help, I would say being really honest and open. And really like what I'm amazed by is just like how generous people will be when they realize like what I'm trying to accomplish and like that I'm fundamentally on a journey of learning. And that the more I can learn and the more I can understand the landscape of learning across different disciplines in the horse world, the better I can do my job, and the more amazing content and the more amazing offerings that we can make available on NF Plus. And so I'm kind of like, it feels like in different cultures when tribes move locations, there's someone that goes ahead to find a good place and then they build a fire. And then everyone goes and once everyone gets there, they build, that fire becomes bigger because the resources arrive. And that's kind of how it feels right now. It feels like I'm going ahead to find what I need to find. And then in that journey, I will build a fire. And that's where NF Plus will meet me.
That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough because I think we've both probably experienced this thing of the challenge and the boundaries that preconceived notions about people can place on you. Because really, like when you get down to it, when somebody has a preconceived notion about you, it's really an expectation that you're unaware of. You're unaware that you're supposed to meet some expectation.
Yeah.
That somebody else has of you.
Whether it's good or bad.
Whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I are both very, very passionate about educating people and giving them tools in the horse world because ultimately that is the best way that we can help horses.
Absolutely.
The horses are always the one that pay the highest price for what we don't know.
Yes.
Or how unregulated we are, or how much we're bringing into the barn that has nothing to do with them. And it's especially difficult, I think, to be in a situation where learning requires a lot of vulnerability. And I have to imagine, I mean, as you and I have talked and you've been going on this journey, you were kind of coming into this having taken like a pretty sizable break from riding. I mean, riding when you were building the business and for most of the time that we were working together, you certainly weren't riding the way that you are now, and you certainly weren't learning on the ground the way that you are now. And you have an educational platform. It's not purely educational now, but there's certainly an educational component to what you do. And you're also showing up admitting, I have an educational product, but that doesn't mean I know everything. And
Which
I
is
need
scary
to learn.
because sometimes I feel like that might be the expectation.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're a professional that knows everything. Have you felt that you've sort of rocked up to places and there has been some expectation about who you are and what you know and what people think it should look like when you get your horses out of the trailer?
Yes. And I would say that like I've benefited a lot from the positive aspects of that in the past. I've moved through parts of the horse world that I felt my work really spoke in a positive way, and I was met with a lot of warmth. I'd say that recently I had a couple of experiences where I realized that that's not always going to be the case. And I was kind of arriving to a learning opportunity that I was like already on the back foot. Like I was already, and I'm really grateful. It was an incredibly uncomfortable experience. And I had to do a lot of talk about like channeling humility and having like a go-to gratitude practice, because I think that was the only thing that got me through that experience. I think it was a really important one for me to learn though, because I think it happens to people all throughout the horse world. And I realized I've done it. I've let other people's opinions about riders or professionals in the horse world, inform and influence. And now I felt like I experienced like how hurtful and how, first of all, especially if someone's showing up in a vulnerable place to learn often, like if you're showing up and you're putting yourself out there to learn, like I feel like I would hope, and I would just like invite everyone who's listening, like if someone's showing up to learn, even if they show up with different boots or they have a fancy trailer or they don't have a fancy trailer or they have, different kinds of horses to you, or they wear a helmet instead of a cowboy hat, or they wear a cowboy hat instead of a helmet. Like if they've shown up to learn, like I implore you to please, like just meet them as a human. Like that's it. Just meet them as a human, because learning is hard enough as it is, especially if it's something you've never done before. So if you're in a particular discipline, like I come from a show jumping background, like hardcore show jumping background. So moving through the Western world and moving through the natural horsemanship community and learning all the nuances of it and understanding all the different methods and approaches and philosophies, like I'm a beginner. I'm learning. Like I've never done Liberty before. And I want to show up with so much curiosity, and I want to show up. And so like I would ask, like I feel like asking on behalf of everybody to be like, if you want to go do something new with your horse, I really hope for you that the people that receive you, or the people that are hosting that clinic or that opportunity, whatever learning opportunity that you're if you're trying a new trainer, like I really hope, and I hope you even have the ability to ask, like, hey, please just meet me as a human, because I'm trying something new, which is scary, and I'm not going to be good at it. Or if I am good at it, I'll be good at it, but I might not even know that I'm being good at it because I'm trying something new for the first time. And it also made me like really empathize more than ever how horses must feel all the time when they're trying something new, or they're being asked to do something new, or like it's such a state of trust that's required. And I don't think we give each other enough credit, and I think there is a lot of judgment and preconceived notions in the horse world, and people show up with different clothing and the different appearance, and you're like judged ahead of time. And then you have a compromised learning experience because you're navigating the emotions of being judged or being talked to differently. And like, let's be honest, horse people are sensitive people. We wouldn't be existing in this world if we weren't. We have to understand the nuances of a 1,000-pound animal. We're sensitive to the body language changes or the tonal changes of another human, whether we admit it or know or not. So if you are judging someone and you like that tension exists in you, I promise you that other person will feel it from you, either consciously or unconsciously, and it will affect their ability to learn or to understand your world. So like, yeah, I'm not sitting here on the sofa saying that I haven't had preconceived notions, because I have. And I now want to like invite myself to just maybe think twice and allow myself to meet that person. And isn't that like, I think the climate that we live in right now, like what if we just meet each other human to human?
Yeah.
Like what if we just, regardless of politics or race or where in the horse world this person comes from, or what kind of horses they have, or how much money they have, or what kind of truck they drive in, or what kind of clothes they wear, what if you just met them as a human? I want to pick your brain too about this, because you shared me some really powerful stories, but you're right. Like, both of us, I think not even just sometimes, I think a lot of the time. I think actually I would argue that drives both of us into why we do what we do, is like we're pushing so hard for connection. Dude, like why are you such an amazing podcast host? Because you're genuinely trying to find connection with a whole wide array of people. But I think the people who do that great are also the people who have like felt that disconnect.
Needed it in the past.
Yeah.
Right? Like the idea that the best you'll ever be at something is when you are becoming who you've needed in the past. And I think that's
yeah. Yeah.
like kind of hits you in the gut. Ooh, right?
Yeah. Dropping some wisdom, dude.
I think it's helpful for me to remember why it feels so bad to feel like an outsider, and that we're evolutionarily programmed to want to fit in.
Yes.
The greatest threat from an evolutionary standpoint was to sort of be cast out from your tribe. And so when you think about, somebody coming in for a clinic, and maybe everyone at the clinic knows each other, they all came from the same barn except for like that one person. Maybe that one person shows up and they do not have the fancy brand of boots. They don't have the fancy brand of saddle. They have, a helmet cover on their helmet that makes it look like they're coming from, a different discipline or the eventing world, and it's a show jumping clinic, whatever the case may be. They are well aware most of the time that they look different, and they are feeling that within themselves. I think so often when we're the ones in the comfortable position, we're the ones where we already know everybody. We came with our barns, so we already know everybody else in the clinic. We are in such a position of comfort that we don't really think about the ramifications of staring at that person but not actually speaking to them, and how that will actually truly compromise their learning experience. Because when your brain is so focused on the feeling of being an outsider and how dangerous that has been to human beings from an evolutionary standpoint, and we still feel that in our nervous systems today, they cannot learn in the same way that they would if they felt like they were in a really safe environment. And we have conversations all the time, I think, in the horse world, and there have been, videos and all sorts of things that have been discussed online about different teaching styles. And I think it's, some teachers are, and some coaches in the horse world are like pretty sharp, but it's coming from, that sharpness is happening on top of an already well-established relationship. And then there are other times that sharpness is coming into a fragile relationship. Like if I feel really comfortable with you 99% of the time, but one time I'm really sharp with you, or I say something that's hyperbolic or whatever, that's not going to hit you in the same way that it would if you felt like you were on thin ice with me all the time.
Yeah.
And that majorly compromises. I mean, you and I have learned this from Dr. Jenny Susser.
Yeah, do a shout out for Jenny.
Yeah, that majorly compromises someone's learning experience. And I think the thing that we can all get behind is that that will affect the horse. Ultimately, all of this trickles down to the horse. Toxic barn cultures, toxic learning environments, people feeling really shut down, people feeling really dysregulated, people feeling like they cannot gain the knowledge that they need in order to do what they want to do with their horses. All of that, the horse pays the price for all of our deficits as a horse community. And so if you can't bring yourself to do it for the person, it's like you can bring yourself to do it for the horse.
Yeah,
for sure.
Look down. If you can't connect with the person in the saddle, then look down at their horse and try to find something that you connect with in that horse. And then, be kind for the horse that they have.
Yeah.
Saddle fit is something we talk about all the time. But even still, maybe we don't fully grasp just how important it is. Research shows that the wrong saddle fit can restrict a horse's movement, create tension, and over time even lead to injury. For years, I've tried to find that perfect saddle, something that would help my mare relax and stay sound. But after so many tries, I started to question if it was even possible. Horses' bodies change. Humans' bodies change. Maybe when it comes to saddles, good enough is all any of us can hope for. Then a friend introduced me to Schleese. I'll be honest, I was hesitant. I'd been let down before, and a saddle is a big investment. But they offered something I hadn't seen, an 80-point professional saddle fit evaluation for both English and Western saddles. And when they fitted my saddle, everything felt different. Their saddles offer an orthopedic fit and are infinitely adjustable for both horse and rider. So you never have to worry about having a saddle that doesn't fit 6 months later or having different saddles for different horses. There's a few other Schleese features that have been a game changer for us too. The seat pad adjustments are a huge help, letting me easily add or change pads for a longer multi-day ride versus an arena ride. I love the stirrup placement adjustment, especially as an English rider riding Western, and I really appreciate how lightweight these saddles are. Their modern, light design makes all the difference on this long road trip with so many stops. Right from that first ride, my horse lady, she moved like she'd been waiting for this. In that moment, I understood what I'd been searching for all along. A saddle that didn't just fit, but empowered us to grow together. If you're ready to take that next step on your saddle fitting journey, book your free consultation with Schleese today. Go to schleese.com/bookconsult Noëlle Floyd or visit schleese.com to learn more. That's SCHLEESE.com. I remember watching when you announced Horse People. I was so excited with that introduction because you talked about right in that introduction of the concept and the message about being an outsider. And I actually was like, I want to do a poll with Caroline to ask the whole horse community, how many of you have felt actually not included? Like, how many of you have felt like an outsider? Because I was like watching you on camera and I was going, I know that Caroline has felt that. And I know I have felt that more times than I have actually felt included.
And we're saying this, and we're two white women too. That's another layer of this is yes. We have a lot of, privilege or whatever you want to call that. I know privilege is a buzzword that puts people off sometimes, but, that's we don't come from, poverty. We don't, we had a lot kind of going for us coming into the horse world anyway.
We didn't have cultural or economical hurdles to navigate to get here in the same way that other minorities or other less represented individuals have in the horse world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to go if we're feeling that way, then hey y'all, maybe there's a bigger thing that we need to be talking about. We need to, maybe there's culturally shifting and really naming that toxic barn culture is not okay. And going to a clinic and being spoken to in a judgmental or unkind way. I think at this stage in the game and where the horse world is at, I think everyone should be going above and beyond to support each other.
Yeah.
I don't even think it should just be be civil and be polite. No. Be curious and be supportive and be like an embrace, like, you know, because I guarantee you will find something that connects you with the other person.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you've probably been, because like every time I judge someone in the horse world, I also think, well, I kind of feel like I've been there.
Yeah.
And like, I think, who was it? Josh said it in our first podcast. Like, none of us have walked the perfect line. None of us are untainted. None. So none of us have the ability to stand on a soapbox, or none of us have the moral high ground, because we were all in a place of compromise at some point. I've judged, I've left out, I've been mean, I've gotten mad at my horse, I've lost my temper, I've like, all those things.
You know? Absolutely. Same. Yeah. I mean, every time we see something bad in the horse world, I see a thread of myself in it.
And I think that's what makes it uncomfortable.
It's a really hard confrontation with the reality that we all have tendencies that we know are wrong, that are like deeply unsettling in us. That, again, I mean, the thing of like losing your temper with your horse. We were talking about that earlier. I mean, we've all hit a breaking point with our horse. How you handle that breaking point, I think, age and maturity definitely helps.
Yes, for sure.
There are things that, you know, I certainly feel like I have tools around now as a 34-year-old that I did not have tools around when I was an 18-year-old working student, when I was a 20-year-old working student. And I think feeling external pressure is a huge factor that we don't talk about enough, and how that changes the way that pressure can amplify behaviors is really profound.
Yes. And I think that we don't often prioritize finding tools around that, or think that we can achieve and acquire tools around that. And Jenny will tell you that you can. Yeah. And I think, you know, when I witnessed Tick compete in Road to the Horse last year, or this year, I would say last year, it's this year.
It feels like it was years ago.
I think that is like an absolutely masterclass on how to, one, be vulnerable, because he really did. And talking to people at that event, and talking to people even at this event, people still remember, like, man, that was such an act of vulnerability. That's like, I'm going to go outside my comfort zone. And Tick is like one of my like all-time like aspirations when it comes to being in a constant state of learning, being constantly curious, not judging, and just being willing to like try something new regardless, and not having any attachment. And I can tell you guys, like, he went into that, he's like, yeah, he was like, yeah, it would be awesome to win. But he's like, I had these principles, he had these 10 rules of how he was going to go into that. And if he achieved all those things, that he would be like, those were going to be the principles of his experience. And that's like one of the big takeaways that I continue to try to come back to. And man, I'm not like perfect at it by any stretch of the imagination. But it's like, when I see how Tick like focuses on the experience, not the outcome, like, that was one of the things that kept me grounded in that like recent experience I had, where I felt really like prejudged by who I was. And I felt like I rocked up to a learning opportunity. I was like already on the back foot, and it was going to take a lot of work. And it did. It took a lot of humility and a lot of gratitude for me to even feel like I was even close to being like just at like a neutral, like in a state of neutral with some of the individuals there. And I think I just kept being like, this is an amazing opportunity, this is an amazing experience, I'm just here to learn. This is an amazing opportunity, this is an amazing experience, I'm just here to learn. And focusing on the experience. And I like, that was something that I really, really gleaned from Tick's experience last year at Road to the Horse, was he was just like, I'm just here for this like amazingly rich experience, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And when you channel that energy, like, it even dissipated some of the tension that I had. And like, I want to also, like, I feel like it's important to say, like, when you're in a clinic environment, for example, and you're a singular person, that you have this amazing opportunity to get put into the center of the arena and get instructed in front of auditors, in front of other participants. I don't know about everybody else, but like, I have had to do a lot of work to feel comfortable and to really be in a receptive state, to be in that place and not just feel like deer in the headlights, completely and totally judged by every single human being.
Or like you're performing instead of learning.
Yes.
Like when you're performing, that's kind of like an output state. And when you're learning, you're in a kind of more of a receptive and like comprehensive type of state. It's tough to not feel like you're performing. That was really something that I actually learned early on in interviewing people in front of the camera or podcasting or whatever, is I have to be in such a receptive state that I'm truly comprehending what is happening around me, and that I'm actually learning from the person that's sitting in front of me. Otherwise, I'm constantly listening to respond and I'm not listening to understand. And that's where you get into trouble around something feeling like it just that it feels performative and that it doesn't feel as authentic. And I think that we also can't really show up authentically for our horses when we are in such a state of pressure that it feels like a performance when it's supposed to be a learning experience. It's hard to take that mask off.
Well, first of all, I want to just say that fundamental, pivotal aspect of who you are and how you like do your work is why you're one of the best in the business.
Oh,
like,
God. Please.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at taking compliments.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
I'll just continue to give you and you'll get better. But I think that is like, anyone who is passionate about getting into media and like is passionate about getting into storytelling in the horse world, I would say like what Caroline just said is like at the cornerstone of being able to represent and offer narrative and offer content in a level that is going to win you awards, which you have, because you listen to understand. You don't listen to respond. And like a lot of us are taught to listen to respond. And I think a lot of us, like when you talk about the performance aspect of it, like I can think of so many lesson opportunities in my whole journey with horses from very little on, that I was a very self-conscious child. I've always been very aware of like, it's what makes me good at my job, but I'm like hyper aware of everything.
Yes.
I'm hyper aware of like the shift in that person's face, the shift in their tone, shift in their energy, where they are in the arena, who's watching, what's happening. I'm hyper aware. Like if I was a horse, I'd be like the one on the outside, like just, and it's taken a lot of work and a lot of maturity to try to like narrow in and really focus on like Nikki Flundra in a podcast I had with her recently. I asked her this advice, not just for our list, like to our listeners, but for myself. I was like, how do you navigate these high pressure moments where you're on a movie set and your horse has to...
I remember this question.
And she was
so
like,
beautiful.
You focus on what your horse needs. In my head, I was like, why didn't I know that when I was like 8 or 9 years old? Like, God, I wish I had known that, because I was like so in my own reality. I didn't do anything for my horses when I was in that state. My horse is like, are you even up there? Like, are you... And what's amazing is the universe has given me this amazing mare that's like, when I'm not present, like if I'm on my phone in front of her, she'll knock my phone out of my hand. She's like, be present
not
or
on
nothing.
My watch.
Present or nothing.
Yeah.
And if I start like tuning out, or if I start, like if I'm not present in my body, she will tell me. And those horses, and that's like what I've learned from Josh, and when I've like so many people in the horse world will say, those are the horses that also get a bad rep. And she had a bad rep, was because she was like human, hi, like I'm showing up, or I'm very present, and she like would push into people. And Josh was like, no, she's pushing into people because she can't feel you energetically, because you are not existing, you're not embodied. So she's like pushing into you because she's like, hello, like,
she's looking for some feedback.
She's looking like,
right.
Are you present? Are you feeling? And like, I even heard Whitney Cummings talking about this in like a podcast, not even a horse podcast. Hey, like, are you present? Do not shrink, but be present. Doesn't have to be, don't be loud. That's not the same. Like, be present, be in your body. And that's how horses feel us. And like, I think the performance part really takes you out of your body and really in your head. And when that happens, I think that's when horses are like, okay, cool, I'm on my own. Like, I'm completely left here.
Yeah.
like I got to run the show.
Yeah.
And I can think of so many opportunities I've had in my riding, and so many situations I've had where I was so in my head. And I think like realizing the connection between being in our heads, not being present, not able to observe, not able to respond to our horses in real time, we lose all capacity for feel. And that's what we're all trying to achieve. You're in a clinic, you're in a learning opportunity, you're training, you're at a horse show, you're trying to perfect your craft, whatever that is, that requires feel. Feel requires presence.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking and you're nervous and you're uncomfortable, one thing I would say to anyone, and like I try to say, and I say this to myself first, is like, if you're uncomfortable in a situation, then maybe that situation is not, and maybe you're not ready.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're putting yourself in a situation because you want to be the person that's ready, but you're not ready. You know?
Yeah.
And like I've done that. I'm really guilty of that.
Yeah.
And I think that like when you do that, you and where you allow someone to put you in a situation, you know, that you're maybe not ready for, and then it feels like the circumstances take over.
Like it's such a blur that we can't gain any data from it. We are leaving with the exact same set of information that we had going in, and that doesn't allow for really any growth. I feel like it's so interesting to have these conversations with you, knowing you, having the privilege to know you for as long as I have. I have seen so much how you have invested and committed yourself to just growing as a person, even when it's been really uncomfortable for you too. And I've seen you in those moments, and I want to acknowledge that, that I've seen that in you. I'm not going to cry on this podcast.
You are probably one of the safest, and I know everyone in the horse world feels this way. It's because it's how you're able to connect with people in the way that you do. You're like one of the safest human beings I've ever met. That's why I'm so glad that you're continuing to like exist and thrive in the podcast space, and continue to just thrive in the horse space, because you are like honestly one of the safest people I've ever had the privilege to spend time with. And we need lots of safe people, you know, people that like you, like everything that we're talking about, you embody.
Oh God, not perfectly. Nobody does it perfectly.
Perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect.
And I don't know, I think you do it as good as I'd ever hoped to do it.
I'm not going to cry on this podcast.
And I told you you'd get lots of practice in receiving compliments.
It is a joy and a privilege to know you. And it is a joy and a privilege to have this relationship and to see this, I mean, what you're doing. I worried when I stepped away from working full-time at NF. I really worried about what my feelings would be when I saw things continue without me. I agonized over that decision for so long, and it was such an internal dialogue that I had with myself that I really felt like I couldn't share with anyone, and I felt so in my head about it. And for context, for people who don't know what I'm talking about, after working for Noëlle and working for Noëlle Floyd for 6 years, I stepped out of my full-time role purely because I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And that is a really demanding age. It's a really demanding setup. And there was a little bit of this feeling of needing to just shift some priorities so that I could spend more time with my children in this very vulnerable period of their lives. But really what happened was I was hit within about a year. I was hit with just an onslaught of that really made me kind of question everything in my life. And I think that, to your credit, in the most vulnerable state one of the most vulnerable states I've ever been in. I mean, you saw me go through postpartum depression. That was probably, the most vulnerable state of my life. But this was probably second place because my identity has really been wrapped up in my work. And I was like, there's nothing about this job that I don't want to continue to do. And so how do you make a decision to step away from something that I was genuinely pumped to do every day? I couldn't imagine not doing that all day, every day with a group of people that I absolutely adored.
Yeah.
Nothing on paper made sense. And then I was hit with just an onslaught of bad things in my life that happened that made me realize that there are seasons of life that demand you to look at things differently, and they only have to be a season. And so I let go of these very tightly held beliefs that I could control everything about my life. Because there were a series of things that happened to me that I could not control and I couldn't fix. And as someone who is, a very, someone who feels like you can work your way hard enough to any outcome.
Yes.
I really had to let that go.
Yeah.
And I think, what I wanted to say was it's such a credit to you that in that moment where I felt so fragile and I felt so unsure of myself and I felt really at war with myself over the decision to step back or not, I had no fear of talking to you about it. That when we had that conversation, I was scared of myself, but not of you. And I still feel that way. And I still feel like maybe that's why I don't have the emotions of, feeling like the ship is leaving without me and I'm...
Dude, you will always be part of the ship. You are etched in its very fabric.
Thank you.
I hope you know that.
I was really scared of how I would feel. I was really scared of how I would feel.
And I was scared too. I mean, straight up, like, when you feel like you've been navigating like the big ocean and your co-pilot
you're at like the front of the ship and I'm the one right behind you with the telescope.
Yeah. And I was like, dang.
It had been like that for a long time.
That was tough. It was tough for me. You know how much I attach to my people.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure there's psychologists would say it's not healthy.
Because you choose really good people. Like that is the mark of an excellent CEO. The best CEOs are top-notch recruiters, basically.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. Like, I think, I definitely recruit people off of feel.
Yeah.
More than anything, an instinct. And that's why I think I really trusted your decision, because at the end of the day, it wasn't made with your head, it was made with your heart, right?
It was really made with my heart.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it felt good.
No. And that's like a good, I think that's like a really, I've learned that in witnessing and watching you. I've learned so much in watching you navigate this shift because I didn't see it coming. Maybe I should have. Like I knew what you were navigating, being like a working mom and all the things that you have going on. It's like, but I've learned a lot in watching you navigate, like, and I think that's very true of the decisions that we make with our heart, is that sometimes they do not make sense on paper. And that's okay. They don't have to make sense to anyone else except you. And sometimes those decisions that we make that are led by our heart or informed by our heart and not by our head are actually the ones that like change the course of our lives in a way that they're meant to, in a way that like you might actually be put in a position that you might never have imagined for yourself because you had limiting beliefs. And we all have limiting beliefs, right? So like, what are the limiting beliefs that you have, that I have about our ability to navigate this one beautiful and precious life?
This is the only one, and it's so short. You've just got to, I think so many people really struggle with making decisions. Do I make decisions from my head or do I make decisions from my heart? And ultimately, I mean, this has been a really beautiful season of my life. I think, you know, kind of in closing, like, I've realized that living a fulfilled life, living a really full life, for me, I always thought that it meant doing everything and doing it all and doing as much as I possibly could. And I'm like rabid in that way.
And that, you think that's reflective of your horse journey as well?
Absolutely. The way that I view horses in my life now is so different than I ever have before. And I always really feared that. I came up competing all the time, like every weekend. And, like when I was a kid, and it wasn't at a really high level, but I mean, even as a child, I remember feeling somewhat burnt out on competing, and I felt there was just a feeling of chasing your tail a bit, and I don't really know in that period of my life kind of how much I grew, and then having children and being in the media space and thinking about the role that horses can play in both of those areas of my life, instead of as a vehicle for just purely my athletic goals, has fundamentally changed the way that I think about horses existing on this earth in relationship with humans. I knew that when I started Horse Person, when I started the podcast, that it would mean that I wouldn't be riding. I've given up riding to start this podcast because I have I have a limited amount of time every week, because I am still very much focused 90% of my time on my kids. And so when I looked at those hours that I could make available, I thought, what do I want to do with them? What do I feel most called to do with them? It also helps that I have an 18-year-old schoolmaster who I can hop on anytime and the buttons are still there and he's not going to buck me off if he's had a couple of weeks off. But I worried about that shift and how that would make me feel. There's a theme to this, constantly worrying about how you're going to feel after a change, right? And I have realized that my identity and our identity with horses is beautifully dynamic. And it is such a gift to embrace the different ways that they can exist in our lives. There is nothing now that makes me happier than to watch my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old stand up on the pasture fence and feed the horses this absolutely disgusting concoction of treats and grain and sugar cubes and carrots that they've mixed up in the tack room and added molasses on top of or whatever. And they're giggling and the horses are licking them in the face and they're getting molasses all over the face. It is pure joy. And in my children's joy with my horses, which is just feeding them treats and just loving on them, I have rediscovered the joy that I had when I was a kid. Like, I get to feel that all over again. And I'm not upset that I'm not like eventing at some level, that I'm not doing what I felt like I would give me value, would give me worth as a horseman. Your worth with your horse is not determined by how high you jump. It's not determined by the score on your last dressage test. It is not determined by some show record that, frankly, nobody else is really thinking about anyway. And it is so beautiful to rediscover that. It's like feeling like that 6-year-old horse crazy little girl all over again. And it's really beautiful.
It's so interesting also that, like, by liberating yourself, by making a decision with your heart and not your head, you have also liberated your relationship with horses.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, like, the liberation happens with the human, and then the ripple effect of that affects all the relationships that you have, which is, I love, like, that's such a pillar of Josh Nichols' work is like how you are in relationship with yourself is how you are in relationship with your horse. How you are in relationship with your horse, how you are in relationship with your wife, your husbands, your children, your community, right? So you made a decision that liberated yourself in a way that you wanted to exist in this chapter of your life, in this season of your life. And then it, like, the effect on it in all your relationships has clearly been profound.
It's the gift I didn't know I was going to get. Yeah.
Which is so cool because that instills that evidence that when we like come out of our head, you know, and drop into our body, and like it's not an easy thing to do in this world and in this day and age, but like you can make that crazy decision. You can do the thing you didn't expect. You can follow a crazy idea. My best friend has a bumper sticker in her truck that says "Trust your crazy ideas." And she's like one of the most liberated, one of the most like present, amazing women that I like know, in addition to present company. Like, and I think the women that inspire me the most are the ones that trust their crazy ideas.
Your entire business is a crazy idea.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
We all are waiting for like the perfect time, right? We're all thinking that the stars are going to align and a billboard is going to come down from the sky carried by angels with golden wings that says, now is the time to start chasing that dream. Now is the time to act on that crazy idea. Also, here's $1,000 to do it with.
Yes.
You are evidence that, first of all, that's never going to happen.
Nope.
And second of all, you have to make your own path, and sometimes you just have to start. And that doesn't have to feel reckless, but it does have to feel committed.
And don't be surprised if people tell you that it's a completely crazy idea.
Yeah.
Or that you shouldn't do it, or that, and that's where like when you think of like how much you felt, like how much you listened to your heart in that decision you made to take a step back, and that you don't always know what the outcome will be in the decisions that you make. And if you did, then it would take all the fun out of being human.
Yeah.
Right? It's like letting go of that control. It's going to take me 10,000 miles to like relinquish that control. We do that to feel safe. I know that I do. I try to control every aspect of that I possibly can to feel safe. But at the end of the day, actually, it's about trusting yourself first, and then really choosing to trust those around you and around like the experience, not the outcome, but the experience and what it will offer you. And there's no way for you to know that.
We have to do a part 2 at the end
We
of this.
do have
trip.
to do a part 2, man. Oh my God. Okay. Should we do the rapid fire questions?
Should we rapid fire this?
Yeah, let's rapid fire this.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you the questions that I ask all my guests. If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
Probably my friend Tick Maynard's book. Our friend Tick Maynard's book, In the Middle of the Horsemen. And the Pony Club Manual.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, dude, I love that you threw that one in. I love that you threw that one in. Okay. Who is the most iconic horse in history?
Iconic in my life would be Theodore O'Connor, the little event pony that could. 14-1 or 14-2 and jumped around what is now the 5-star level of eventing.
Who rode him?
Karen O'Connor. Go watch videos.
I'm going to now.
He's incredible. He just, everyone called him the pony with wings. He really was kind of the reason that actually I became really interested in eventing, because it was just wild to see this tiny little jelly bean with legs just boing off of the ground. He was really, really amazing.
Most undervalued skill as a rider?
Sitting in discomfort. And I don't just mean that when you're on the horse. I think sitting through the discomfort of learning, I think being really comfortable with the fact that when you're learning something new, it will feel pretty terrible at first. I think that can sometimes chase us away from something. And I think that if you recognize that that discomfort is temporary, hopefully, and that it is an enormous, there's an enormous reward on the other side of it, hopefully, that you'll learn to withstand it.
Who is the greatest horseman in history?
I think Ingrid Klimka's pretty badass.
Ooh,
I mean,
that's a good one.
Double Olympic champion. Also, to be around her, she's like a ray of sunshine. She's just really awesome.
And the last question is mares, stallions, or geldings?
Mares to ride, geldings to snuggle, stallions to watch somebody else ride.
That's a first, and I really like that answer. That's a really good answer.
Okay, now I get to ask you
you
these
get
back.
to ask. I have not actually even thought of my answers. Okay.
I'm going to ask them fast, though, so you can't think. If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
The Alchemist.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a horse book, actually, because I think that's like The Alchemist. Because it helped me figure out all of this. It helped me, it started me on that path. And I would say that I think it has the capacity, that book has the capacity to start everyone out on the path of like true, authentic, like pursuit of what they're really here to put into this world.
Most iconic horse in history.
Oh, when I read this to you, I was like,
really don't know how you're going to answer this.
Alexander the Great, Bucephalus. I can't pick a modern horse because then everyone's going to...
Was not expecting that much of a throwback.
I know,
okay.
I dig it. Because I am obsessed and have always been obsessed with the Black Stallion. And that story about Alec and the Black is based off of the great tale of Alexander the Great and the Bucephalus.
Most undervalued skill as a rider.
I'd say right now my answer is humility. Because
I like that you're saying that that's a skill, because it is something you can practice. It's not just a trait.
I'd also like to say presence. I've started to understand or begin to understand that the great, like the really gifted people that you watch, the ones that like take your breath away with horses, they're completely and totally present. Yeah. And they're completely and totally embodied. And maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe there's, listeners right now that are like, no, that's not true. But like in what I've witnessed and what I've observed, that seems to be true. And that's how they access feel. And that's how they access observation. And like all the great attributes and skills that we look for and we like honestly we pursue, lifelong pursue, are all like, they're all like leaves on the tree of presence.
Damn, I'm glad I went first. Can't top that. Who is the greatest horseman in history?
I don't know. I feel like it's to be decided for me.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm even like allowed to to say that, but for me, I feel like that's a big part of this journey for me.
Yeah.
Is like for me, I don't know if I don't feel I know enough to feel confident in my answer. I think that is one of the great pursuits of this journey, is for me to feel like I can maybe answer that question a little bit better.
Mares, stallions, or geldings?
Mares, I'm like now a devoted mare person, but I've also been a hardcore stallion person in my life. And the only, like when I was a child, geldings raised me. Stallions like helped me understand what it feels like to fly. And mares have completely and totally captured my heart. And I'm like completely and totally a like crazy mare lady now.
This was fun.
This was so fun.
Can we please do it again?
Yeah, part 2 coming at you guys.
I can't wait to watch this journey unfold for you. And I really admire you for being bold enough to do it.
And I'm just so excited that I get to listen to you every week, every month on the Horse Person podcast.
Can we hug now?
Yeah, let's hug. This episode was brought to you by Schleese. If you're ready to take the next step on your saddle fitting journey, book your free consultation with Schleese today. Go to schleese.com/bookconsult Noëlle Floyd or visit schleese.com to learn more. That's SCHLEESE.com.